All right, everybody. Hope you're doing well this evening. Welcome to Dudes Talking. Rule of law or law and order with LB Bork. Mr. Bork, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir. How you doing,
Doing
John?
doing good, Mr. Bork. Glad to have you on again. I wanted I was, you were my guy to ask when Jeremy Roth-Kushel brought it up on the when we covered the debate roundtable between
Right.
Biden and Trump about the rule of law. Over, Trump and Barr pushing law and order and how the rule of law is constitutional. So I wanted to ask you if that was sound, sir. And it seems like, based of your research and me asking you that it seems like that's what we should go for. So I was wondering if you could explain the difference of the two to our audience, if you don't mind, Mr. Bork.
Oh, you bet. It's a great topic, and it fits in with my work totally. And it's great that you guys picked up on it. You know, the duality that you felt is going on, and that basically there's that show Law and Order. You're aware of that program, right?
Yes,
It was
yes.
on for a long time. Of course, that deals with the legal system. Rule of law would be Constitution and international law, anything that revolves around law. And law and order would be the legal system under the 14th Amendment, which incorporates the Constitution and international law. But most of the time, people are going to default to being in the legal system. And what they've done with the 14th Amendment is basically override the common law. So everything is presumed to be the legal system. So you don't have access to the common law anymore.
Yeah.
Does that make sense a little bit?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. It's equity law now, and of course, the legal system deals with statutes. And I should have had common law picked up, open so I could read it. I'll find it in a minute here while we're talking, but I'll give you the definition. It's pretty simple. I mean, even the legal dictionary tells you the difference between common law and statute law, which is called private law. And a lot of people don't understand that. I call the 14th Amendment system under the 14th Amendment the Communist Association.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all based on private law, which is you have to have some kind of status or a contract to be have it apply to you. You have to be a certain person, which includes corporations and the people under the 14th Amendment. I think I'm the only one that can really explain this in the whole movement. The 14th Amendment's divided up into 4 sections, and Section 3, or actually it's in Section 4, they can't talk about the duality of the system. It's kind of like they'll lose their paychecks if they talk about it. Mm-hmm. It's called pensions and bounties, the verbiage that's in the Section 4 of the 14th Amendment, that they have to keep the secret, and that's tied to Section 3. It's kind of complicated. You know, it's like Section 1 incorporates everyone into the system. And we could read it if you want a little later.
Yeah, I can read it right now if you want to. I have it
Oh,
up.
you got it open? Good for
Yes.
you. Yeah, if you want to read Section 1, go ahead.
All persons born or naturalized into the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law that shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws.
Right. And there's been a couple law reviews put out by Yale University. It talked about the conspiracy theory behind the 14th Amendment because the word person incorporates corporations. Okay, so I've been telling people for years that that was the true purpose of the 14th Amendment, to give corporations more power. And if you go back to the Roman Empire, when it went from being a republic to an empire, they did the same thing. The lawyers got into, corporations incorporated into the law of persons. And that's basically what the 14th Amendment did. And some of the justices, after about 40, 50 years of the 14th Amendment being in place, they started to question. It's not a conspiracy theory, really. It's a fact. I mean, it's happened. But they call it that to keep this, vagueness and BS going that they have going with it. Because these I'll talk about that in a second. These people are insurgents, basically. That's what Section 3 deals with. But as far as Section 1, it's incorporated people, like in Rome and under the Republic, they had the law persons, and everything applied to them, but then the lawyers got the corporations added to it. And this was true to a point before the 14th Amendment in the states, but the corporate powers and what's happened under the 14th Amendment has, made that more powerful for international corporations and things. So people have to understand that the United States federal government is basically a federation government, and the states are countries or nations. So that's part of nationalist socialism, is the combining of different countries into one, and that's what communism also dictates, is centralization under one government. But the 14th Amendment helped that along. So there's a lot of things that people need to know about it. And like I said, I'm the only one that can really explain it thoroughly. There's a lot of people out there talking about the Act of 1871, and that's a bunch of bullshit. That had to do with the municipality of Washington, D.C. It didn't have anything to do with the people in the states, really. And it's disinformation that came out after I released my book 20 years ago. So if you hear anyone talking about the Act of 1871, run the other direction, because they're either agents or disinformation agents, or people that are incompetent. Plenty of that out there.
So there is a difference between the rule of law, which is... Okay, so explain what rule of law is real quick, Mr. Bork, before we get into the
rule of law
and
is
law and order.
Just anything that follows law, and the main the rule under common law that I like is the contract makes the law, right? That's a real solid foundational common law maxim. I'll give you an example, okay? You've heard even U.S. citizens, when they get married, they have prenuptial agreements.
Yes.
They're overriding the default law under the legal system. Because if you don't make your own contract, you get a default. And the default is the judge under the legal system is, the law and order, so to speak, is going to decide who gets what and what happens.
Okay.
So even if you're a U.S. citizen under the 14th Amendment, you have the right to override that. Even when you're having a business, that's how the whole legal system works. It basically is taking care of incompetent people because they don't know how to contract. So it's a default thing. A lot of people, probably 80% of the people out there, could care less who's really running for president or anything. They just want to live their life, Of course, in the last 100 years or so, they've been conned into voting. And that's all part of this system. And we'll get into that, I guess, if you want to.
Yes, we will.
It's part and parcel of the 14th Amendment system. But
let me ask you real quick, Mr. Bork. I didn't interrupt your train of thought, but I have a question. So we have, natural law or God's law.
Yeah,
Okay.
which the government doesn't recognize,
But it
really.
supersedes everything.
Yes, it
Okay.
does. Yes.
And then if you have a decent government, put decent in quotation marks, right? Then you
Yeah.
have, and in our Constitution and Bill of Rights is a framework of that. It's not perfect by any means, but it's if followed, we'd be in a lot better situation, you
Yeah,
know.
it's kind of a con job, actually.
But if we have that,
I can explain that.
if we just take it for what it is in theory, okay,
Yeah.
that would be the rule of law, right?
Yeah. If you look at constitutional law, they call it public law. That means it applies to everyone. And private law we're talking about is statutes. Okay. So, yeah, that's a good observation or question. So, yeah, it would fall more under the rule of law. Hmm.
Yes. So, and then we have, the amendments from after that were made. Some, taking more rights away from us, but some granting the rights that should have been there from the Constitution, depending on, makes that argument. And then you have, so then you have the laws of the states, the county, the town, and the community. So town and community laws, in theory, if we're structuring them, should, you know, it should be from the more local, the more powerful, right? Am I correct in
Yes,
that?
I mean people should be able to live under their local laws, and that's what's wrong with the 14th Amendment, because it centralized everyone into the power of Congress.
In the government
And
as a whole.
because they didn't get rid of the Constitution, it's caused confusion. And depending who argues what or who brings up what, like you see it right now with Trump, for example. You've heard him say, well, if the governor would say, come in and take care of these protesters, I'd do it. That's constitutional. He theoretically could go in and take care of it because of their U.S. citizenship. And if they're being bad, they could charge them under federal statutes. The way they did that, you've heard that too recently. They said, well, we'll deputize the state officers, and then we'll go in and do it.
Yeah, and
They
they also have to use the Insurrection Act too as well.
Well, that's part of it's part of the Constitution, actually.
But he would have to do that to get that done. So so what's the difference as far as law and order then? Because we defined the rule of law. So what would law and order be in the way that they are talking about? Is that is that is it a way to kind of get total control and lockdown or martial law?
Totally, because if they decide to declare martial law, for example, it's technically they can do anything they want. They can suspend habeas corpus, for example. Lincoln did that during the Civil War. But depending on what they do or what they want to do, they can use federal statutes against U.S. citizens, and there's a plethora of them that they can apply.
So I'm looking at
or the states can. They have their own statutes, so you got a dual system of law. Depending on what they want to charge people with, they can.
So
And that's what I think the federal government's doing right now with these protesters. They're going in after them with federal statutes.
Yes.
And if the 14th Amendment didn't exist, well, in that case, because it is, again, it's kind of iffy because of the governors have to okay it. And the Insurrection Act was the Insurrection Act would be constitutional. I think someone said it wasn't.
Okay, so I'm looking at it right now. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah,
or
go
at
ahead,
least
read that.
a synopsis of it?
Yeah, I haven't looked at it in a long time.
So the Insurrection Act was put into place in 1807 and was signed into law by Thomas Jefferson. Okay? And so it empowers the President of the United States to deploy the United States military and federalized National Guard troops within the United States in particular circumstances such as to suppress civil disorder, insurrection, and rebellion.
Right.
Now, before invoking the powers under the Act, United States Code, Title 10 of United States Code 254, requires the President to first publish a proclamation ordering the insurgents to disperse. As part of the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878, these provisions are now codified as amended. So apparently, the Insurrection Act is a statutory exemption to the Posse Comitatus Act. So that's why it allows the United States military and National Guard, as long as the president publishes a proclamation ordering the people to disperse first, for that to be abolished and allow the U.S. military and National Guard to walk the streets, which the Posse Comitatus Act limits the ability for the military personnel to be used under federal command for law enforcement. I'm actually a fan of the Posse Comitatus Act myself. I don't know how you feel about it, Mr. Bork, but I do think that military personnel should be limited in its use by the federal government for law enforcement purposes.
Is there any mention of the governor given permission to come in? Or governors?
Yes. The Act empowers the United States President to call into service the U.S. Armed Forces and National Guard when requested by state legislature or governor if the legislature cannot be convened to address an insurrection against the state, to address an insurrection in any state which makes it impracticable to enforce the law, or to address insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination or conspiracy in any state which results in the deprivation of constitutionally secured rights, and where the state is unable, fails, or refuses to protect said rights.
Right. Correct. Well, like I said, it follows the Constitution. And that's one thing I noticed about the Constitution of what I thought the people of the states are really kind of subject to it. They really can't do much about it. Mm-hmm. And, you have the right to protest and peaceably assemble and protest in regard to the First Amendment originally, but that applied to the federal government, and the states each have a similar provision in their constitutions. Mm-hmm. But 14th Amendment, everyone thinks their government's the constitution-based government of the federal government. But back then, it meant that people would get together and talk about things in conference, basically, and decide what law they didn't like or whatever the case may be, and propose something to the government. Not go around protesting and burning things down. That's not what the First Amendment's about.
Yes, it's not for
it was about
destruction
being
of property.
civil, and doing things properly and intelligently. So this whole, even that idiot who's the New York, not the governor, but those two clowns that
there's
were
many
on
clowns.
TV.
There's many clowns in New York.
Yeah, I know.
I need you to be more specific.
The guy that stayed in his basement, he had a brother. I forget his name. But he said on television, show me in the Constitution where it has to be peaceful or something.
Wait,
and some of the reporters.
You talk about Chris Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo's brother.
Cuomo's, the Cuomo's. And someone said First Amendment,
Yeah.
Yeah. So these people that run government are truly idiots. And we talked about that earlier, why it's important that people know that these things that we're talking about tonight.
Yeah. I can definitely, it's interesting that it was Thomas Jefferson who signed in the Insurrection Act.
Sure.
That's
Yeah,
quite
I'm a
interesting.
Jeffersonian type person. I know Mike Gaddy, our friend, likes. Who did you talk about this last week?
He likes
Uh,
now I'm drawing a blank. Patrick Henry,
Patrick
which I
Henry.
agree with him on that.
Yeah, I do too. But as far as the normal or the average people, once people know I like Jefferson, he's the only one I really liked in regard to constitutional issues. He was telling Americans that they needed to do an agrarian type culture, which is similar to what the Amish do.
Yes.
And of course, the industrial people won out. That's what basically the Civil War was about.
Now let me ask you a tough question, Mr. Bork. Is martial law technically constitutional because of Article 1, Section 9?
Under what provision? Can you
The
read
privilege
it to
of
me?
the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion of public safety may require it.
Yeah, okay, well then it's constitutional, so they can do that. And that's what Lincoln did. But the thing with going back to this thing we were talking about with the Constitution, the states have the right to secede, and that's why if you look at what the courts have said, or there's a paper that I wrote called You Have Been Warned, and it was based on Jefferson Davis's case during the Civil War. If you look at, some of the political speak that happened around that time, they called the South people rebels. And basically the court said, no, they weren't, because the governors gave permission for they charged Jefferson Davis with treason against the United States, right? But they said there was no treason because the governors gave permission for the right to secession, and they had the right to defend themselves. So there was no treason. So they dropped the case against Jefferson Davis because they didn't want this really on the books. And it's there now, and you can read about it. There's definitions that I've used in my writings that relate to that, but it's different from the insurgency, okay? The Constitution says that the federal government can be brought in to help, like we said a minute ago with Trump and what we talked about. The federal government can go in, but the governor has to allow it, okay? So if people in the future, if they don't have the governor on their side and they start getting unruly, I call them unruly subjects, they're going to be charged with treason against the United States, probably. And I've been telling people this for 20 years, that they fix that, If they go against the United States now, even if the governor approves it, there's a chance that they could be charged for treason.
Yes,
by the United States,
and there has
because
been,
they're U.S. citizens now.
And there has been modifications to martial law. And so on a national level, both the United States President and the United States Congress have the power to impose martial law, since both can be in charge of the United States regulated militias. And then the governor has the right to impose martial law as well in each state, depending on their own constitutions within the borders of those states.
Yes.
And so it does appear, however, that there have been many changes to the ability to invoke martial law, and to the degree that it can be invoked. One being the Posse Comitatus Act, as well as supposedly civil courts still have to function during martial law, according to a United States Supreme Court ruling. So they can't go to straight military tribunals under martial law.
Okay.
They have to, civil courts still have to continue to function, supposedly, per the Supreme Court.
That's interesting. I asked you to watch that. What was it? Hillsdale College, I think it was, with
William Barr.
William Barr. It's interesting to listen to him because he was talking about the rule of law to the people there. It was a good discussion. Did you happen to watch it, by the way?
Yeah, but the thing is I think he's just completely talking out of his butt. No, I was going to say a bad word, In that he may say that, but that's not really truly what William Pelham Barr believes. He believes in unitary executive theory, for example, which I mentioned to you, that the president the executive branch has the highest amount of power within the United States, and that the president can pretty much act as a king if the president so
Yes.
chooses. So he could talk about rule of law all he wants to. However, his interpretation of rule of law is the president is king.
Well, they wanted that when they put the Constitution in place back in the 1700s, 1787, but they couldn't get away with it. So they had to do the 14th Amendment to get that power. And that's going to be real problems for him to get away with that. He might believe in it, but the that's why I get so upset, because the 14th Amendment really sealed the deal for him,
Yeah.
And they do have that alleged power if people don't correct their status.
And
they don't have standing to fight it.
And when people also, vote, they're playing into the system.
Yeah, that gets into Section 2 of the 14th Amendment. It says it's a crime to vote, right, in Section 2.
So it's very interesting.
And the reason they did that is because they breached Article 5 of the Constitution and put puppet governments in the South to get it passed. And that's why I think they killed Lincoln, because I don't think he was up for emancipating the slaves, but he wouldn't go along with the 14th Amendment. So, to get that done, they had to put in puppet governments, remove the governors of the South. And I've seen letters of their, last day and things like that. So I know it happened. And it just totally breaches Article 5. So what they had to do is get people to rebel against the original system. And what they did with Section 3 is basically gave the government, both state and federal government officers, free license to not be subject to treason, like the people or the people that are voting or have gotten into. They're basically slaves because of that. That's what is similar to what happens to someone that gets put in prison today. How they, if you look at any case law, prisoners are considered slaves.
Yeah.
Property of the government, basically.
Yeah, they have no rights.
They have no rights whatsoever. So what they've done to usurp the common law and impose this statutory law on people as a default is make the people criminals. And this is called a legal fiction. And a legal fiction is basically a presumption by the court because there's no evidence to, prove otherwise. It's like these people that just don't want to vote or do anything. They think they have constitutional rights, but if they didn't correct their status, they're going to run them through just as if they voted. It's kind of like, robbing a bank. The guys that went in and robbed the bank are voting, but the guy out in the car doesn't vote, but he's still party to the crime. So that's what the first section does. It makes everyone, and naturalizes them at birth, and they're party to the voting rebels.
Yeah.
So they're slaves too, but because they haven't done anything to fight it or change that, they don't have standing to fight the issues.
Yeah, I want to circle back to Oswald Spangler in the chat. Shout out to Oswald. Talk about that Hillsdale College, of course, it has connections to the Council for National Policy and connections to, in Michigan, that connects to the DeVos family, or CMP, Amway, and Turning Point USA, which is Charlie Kirk, that was funded by Council for National Policy former President Foster Freeze. So, William Barr, he it is my opinion that he is one of the people in command right now of the Trump administration. And he's not going to give up that. That's why I think Trump's going to win, because he's not going to give up that power. And I've talked about the numerous crimes of William Pelham Barr, and of course he wrote he authorized a report in 1992 called the Case for More Incarceration, which means he wanted more prisons and the abolition of parole release. The guy's as crooked as they come. So.
Well, he's a authoritarian or totalitarian. So, but that's what the New World Order wants, you know. Those definitions in Title 8 that I use, they're not connected. That's one of the first things I learned when I started studying law. You look at the definition sections in the statutes, right? To kind of see where they're going with the section of code, or, you know, the statutes that are governed, or the code that's govern the statutes in that section. So in Title 8, they defined that they're going after, you know, it's just there by accident, kind of. It's like, you know, my friend Roy back in the 1995, I think it was, I showed it to him. He goes, "What's that doing in there?" You know, well, it looks like the goals of the New World Order, you know, totalitarian, communist, one-party dictatorships. And world communism's also defined. So they're telling you it's not connected. Usually the terms they use the terms in the statutes, but there's nothing connected to it. So it's kind of like they hid it in plain sight there, what their plan was.
Yeah. Yeah.
They you know, and I've used that to educate people over the last 20 years or so. So that's what's going on right now. It's world communism, and they got everyone believing that the communists are taking over now, being the Democrats, but they've already got all the planks of the Communist Manifesto applied 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Everything's done. Everything that's going on right now is just chaotic Marxism. You know, and of course, you look at Black Lives Matter; they admit they're Marxist.
So you end up having, you know, the Fabian socialists that do it slow, undermining all the institutions, and right now you have the Bolsheviks out in the street with the color revolution, and all of this is to shock us, so that when they swing back from the new normal, oh yeah, we took some more of your freedoms away, kind of very similar to 9/11 and the Patriot Act, right? But don't worry, we didn't go all the way, so it's okay.
Well, yeah, it looks like the Republicans are going to look like they saved the day. And that's what's going on right now. It's Hegelian dialectic. Yep, problem reaction solution. You know, and that's what's going to happen. And they still can slowly take things away, and they're tickled pink because they are pinko. That's a commie word that they used to use a long time ago. But they're tickled pink to have. It's already installed. They got what they want. You know, they can jerk people around with these you know, actions that they're doing with the protest and riots and whatever. You know, I was downtown today. I hate even going out anymore. This year's been just terrible. You know, the market I go to, which is a local market, it's got the, you know, the black power fist, or the commie fist, painted on their window. And I told the girl, I go, "Oh, you guys are communists now, huh?" And she got all pissed off, you know, like it's not that. And I go, "Yeah, it is. I've been studying this stuff. Do some research." Yeah,
Kevin Marsden's shown how the fist example of that is very steeped in communism.
Oh, it's socialism too. The National Socialist website had it on there 20 years ago. You know, it means socialist. Red means socialism, and the fist is communist and socialism.
Yes, it's been used throughout since the early 1900s to show that. So, you know, manifesto, something you've mentioned to me earlier, is a declaration of war, a declaration of someone's intention, or motive.
Yeah, you can find that in Bovier's Law Dictionary, 3rd edition. It's pre-Civil War. It's defined right in their manifesto. It's a declaration of war by a sovereign authority, and I believe it's a synagogue of Satan, who was the sovereign in this case, or the power.
So let me ask you about more about William Barr. if you don't mind, just because
Go ahead.
he is a current United States Attorney General, meaning that he is the chief law enforcer of the land, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
So because of that, he this is something that he did while he was a part of the United States Department of Justice under George H.W. Bush, and also remember Barr was a CIA agent who was working under Bush when he was in the CIA. Bush took a liking to Barr. Um, but so what he did was Barr is a strong defender of presidential power. He wrote an advisory opinion justifying the United States invasion of Panama and the arrest of Manuel Noriega. He wrote legal jurisdiction justifications for the practice of rendition, and so that the FBI could enter onto foreign soil without the consent of the host government to apprehend fugitives wanted by the United States government for terrorism or drug trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's interesting. And also, I'm sure you know about Ruby Ridge, the Weavers.
Of course, yeah.
Barr wrote in defense of the sniper Lon Hirochi that he should not be held accountable for the murder of Vicky Weaver, and that if Lon Hirochi was held accountable, in a court of law by a jury of his peers for the murder of Vicky Weaver, then you would never have FBI snipers or law enforcement snipers because they could be held accountable for executing innocent citizens.
Right, but you have this quagmire of the 14th Amendment, and I didn't look at everything. And I know there were a lot of patriots back then, and that's why I wrote my book, to clear up the mess that people believed even William Cooper was having problems, because he didn't look at the 14th Amendment at all. The disinformation that was going on, and it still goes on today. It's not as prevalent, but the 14th Amendment applied to black people only, which is hogwash.
Yeah.
But that's a disinformation.
It says it applies to everyone.
It does. I've got a statement by one of the promoters of it that he said it applies to everyone. But there's even bad case law. This anchor baby stuff, for example, they said something in some case. I could look it up, but I don't know it offhand. That's a bunch of horse crap too. There are no anchor babies.
So let me ask you a question. Someone, Fac in the chat actually asked, I've heard some folks in the sovereignty world say the public is still under the Lieber Code since the end of the Civil War. Do you know about the Lieber Code? Do you agree or disagree?
I do, but it's not really. We're not under the Lieber Code anymore, really. Okay. Someone put that out. When I did my own research back in the 90s, I worked with a group that was called Right Way Law, and they had law groups all over the United States. And, we were friendly. There wasn't this arrogance and, individualism going on back then. And I knew them, they knew me. And I did my own research. I said, let's do a seminar because I want to start promoting my work and my book. They said, great, let's do that. So, there's been a lot of people that have come out in this since 2000 that, they don't try to work with other people. So to me, they're either an operative or an opportunist. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They're not interested in working together and getting this fixed or exposed. So anytime someone comes out and, some people say, well, I would never heard of you. Well, that's back 10 years ago. That was impossible. I've got 7 websites, and I'm still getting, the main site's getting anywhere from 500 to 700 page views a day. So to tell someone in the movement, and we're only a small percentage of people that really know this stuff. So, if people were doing what they should be doing, they know about PAC. So my point is, if someone comes out and starts preaching stuff, they're an operative. Matter of fact, someone was in the radio station chat room yesterday saying, Solomon's a myth, King Solomon. Yeah. There's so much lies going on. It's just impossible to figure out who's who. And if we all work together, you work these things out. Like you and myself have talked about things, and we've worked things out that we were confused about together, you know. And that's the way it gets done. But, you know, these operatives, I don't trust them. You know, it's just, like I said, the paper's operatives and opportunists. I don't see any difference between them because they can create the same damage. So I just lump them into a simple box, and if they're not working with PAC, you know, as far as the law goes, I don't trust them. But there's a lot of people doing good things out there. I'm not saying that everyone's suspect, but we got to, you know, start working together again to get rid of these operatives mostly, and the opportunists, because I've seen a lot of people that might not have been operatives, but they drained the Patriots' bank accounts because they rip them off and then they disappear. That's got to end. Well, people don't have money like they did 10, 20 years ago either. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
So supposedly Barr gave a speech to the Federalist Society, so I'm definitely going to have to listen to that, and maybe I'll send it to you.
Yeah, the Federalists are, you know, as you know, the Anti-Federalists existed during the implementation of the Constitution. So the Federalists can't be trusted, basically. They're the authoritarians that would believe in the president being a full-time dictator under the original Constitution, or, you know, of course, they're going to follow the Federalist Papers more so because they couldn't get away with that, like we talked about. But, you know, they're idiots too. There's a 10th Amendment center, for example. Well, there's no 10th Amendment because of the 14th Amendment. For example, I've heard this from other people too. Let's say the federal government imposes something, a law that might apply, a drug law, let's say, it applies to the states in some way, shape, or form. Well, either the governor or the county says, well, we're not following that law. The federal government says, oh, fine then, because of the communist system, you're not getting any welfare or the socialist taxes. We're cutting off your, you know, benefits. So, well, what's the state have to do? They have to double tax their people to make up the revenue that they lost that they were getting from the federal government, which is pursuant to 14th Amendment system. You know. Yeah. So the 10th Amendment doesn't exist under this 14th Amendment. These people are all frauds, basically. They're fakes. They're you know, trying to make it look like the original system exists, but it doesn't.
So let's play Barr.
Still exists.
Let's play Barr real quick. Supposedly he talks about unified executive theory in this clip. I haven't listened to it yet, but let's see what he says. Okay?
Okay, yep.
One of the more amusing aspects of modern progressive polemic is their breathless attacks on the unitary executive theory.
Oh, great, he's mocking us. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, well. He laughs better than Biden.
So, that's nice. That's nice. That's good. You know, I myself, and I know you agree with me 100%, sir, that the president should not have all the power.
Right. I mean, it is protected by the 10th Amendment, but like I said, this slippery slope with the 14th Amendment is a problem. And that's why I wanted to start, you know, state national society, but no one's interested in it because they like their socialism too much. Or they're scared. I don't know what it is. We can't, you know, I had planned to have an agency that the United States has in each state to, that recognize their status. So they can, you know, can stop, are forced to stop playing these games they play. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But of course you have to, you know, be strict, and you can't take any benefits of the system in that case. And I'm to the point where people should start doing this. Let these socialists eat themselves to death. Let them be taxed by these, they're paying the taxes of the corporations. Everyone should get out and just, have their own communities and their own economies and screw these people. It's not going to make them happy at all. But I really think that these kids they're like this girl I was talking about a few minutes ago. They're all so brainwashed. I don't think even if we were living free, I don't think they would join. I don't think these people have to worry about the cows getting out of the barn. They're so messed up and brainwashed. And they're so anti-Christ, They followed the satanic program.
Interesting.
The stars on the Republican Party flipped in 2001 to the Church of Satan, pentagram. People don't even talk about that or see it.
That.
And, if you're on Twitter or even the Republican website, it's not the elephant's not red and blue anymore. It's red.
Yeah, very much so.
Which again is the color of socialism and communism. And I really think, I don't know, you and myself are the only two people. Even I heard Billy say last night he thought Biden's going to win. But you and myself are thinking Trump's going to win.
Interesting.
I don't know. I was going to ask you, is it getting worse or questionable on your part that you think Biden might win?
Yes, I believe it. I mean, no. I think Trump's going to win. Well, hands down. I think.
Yeah, it's what's in the cards and what my research and observations say. Like we talked about a few minutes ago, they're just useful idiots right now. The Democrats are being thrown under the bus, is what I see.
Someone in the chat asked me to ask you about something called His Holy Church.
Yeah, I used to work with Brother Gregory, but I don't know. I don't trust the guy anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, he used to work with the Vatican, and it's kind of like the CIA. You never quit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said a few things to me. I got sick one time, and he said to me one night, and I didn't talk to him after that night. He goes, if you get better, you should find something else to do. So I go, you're an ass. You don't care about me like you preach, right, to the church, and you're trying to get me out of the way, just like any Jesuit would try to.
Interesting. Okay.
And he preached about not using Social Security numbers. He made his son get one. So, whatever. I don't trust him anymore. He has something bad about me up on the internet. So, there's a lot of people that have bad things about me on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, when you're doing the work, you'll end up having people,
Yeah, well, I've been attacked. I've been in the Viper's Den with the U.S. attorneys. They have forums and stuff, and I just ate them alive. But anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's too bad people are deceived so much. And that's the real problem we face. This internet's made the deception tenfold.
How so?
How so? The disinformation out there and people's gullibility and laziness. They can't discern, and they're easily led by the dangling carrots they're given by operatives. And that's what I've seen in the last 10, 12 years a lot. They'll say, well, you get some free money if you do this UCC strawman stuff. You know how many people I know that went to prison for that? I can't count them on two hands. And personal ones, I've heard of a lot. And it's gotten so bad, one of our people in New York, who was the first one to do my process of nationality correction in New York back in, I think it was 2001. His name's Bobby. He used to help, I didn't agree with it. He'd help U.S. citizens with their legal problems. And I didn't agree with it because they're the enemy, but I'll talk to them and teach them and advise a little bit, but I'm not going to help them with their traffic tickets and all this stuff he was helping them with. But the disinformation programs got so bad that people would come to him and they wouldn't listen to him. They go, well, this book or this person told me this, and I want to do this. He goes, well, do it then, go to prison. And that happened a lot. So he finally quit because it got so bad. And it's unfortunate because he's a good strategic mind. He has a good strategic mind. And he's good at law, good at writing paper, But, he quit. The movement's not near like it was 20 years ago.
No, I mean, the whole truth movement in and of itself, there's only been ever a remnant that spoke the truth. I know you have, the Truth or Industrial Complex being pushed forth by the John Birch Society and the Council for National Policy and Scientology and other, free zoners and sort of group here, that has CIA, too, as well, the government too. You have your government operatives, your CIA operatives, and your FBI operatives, being put into place. Your military operatives too. So it's really crazy. And one more question, Mr. Bork. Thank you for joining us this evening. We had a pretty good amount of viewers. We had about 60 people consistently.
Wow.
Watching. Do you another question from Fact? Do you know a man named David Wynn Miller in the quantum language?
Yeah, he's a fraud. He's an operative. I have a story about him. I was supposed to go to a dentist here in Wisconsin, and he was listening to David Wynn Miller. And the day the week I was supposed to go up to, I knew of this dentist through another doctor. He was a alternative type doctor. Okay, he said, well, I told him a little bit about what I did. This was 8-10 years ago, I think. I can't remember the days and years too well. But he says, yeah, I got a friend that's a dentist, and I'm paying my taxes now. I don't want to get into that. But he said, I got this dentist friend that did it. But it took me about a year or so. I finally contacted him to get some work done on my teeth. And the week I was supposed to go up there, I called the office to verify the appointment, and some woman answered the phone. And she goes, well, the doctor is not going to be seeing anyone, and, you better find a different dentist or whatever she said. I found out a little later that it was the IRS raiding his office. He went to prison for a couple of years because of David Wynn Miller. It's unfortunate because I could have saved him. There are people, I'm telling you, everyone's a fraud out there for the most part.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there.
And what they have going with this 14th Amendment, my book would destroy this system. It would take this government down. But people are deceived, and, I don't know. Like I've said for years, the government doesn't scare me, the people do. That's what we really have to worry about.
Especially with the election coming up and the civil unrest that might
oh, yeah, that's really scary. Yep, because, status or not, I'm not protected by that because of the people,
Yeah, it's so true.
I'm protected as a matter of law, but the people, if things go to hell, it's going to be scary, And the theme song for PAC has always been "All You Zombies." It's a song by the Hooters. It was from the '80s, and people are Walking Dead. That Walking Dead's another reference to what these you people are. You're dead entities of law instead of, real entities of God.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, they took that. They even mocked it with the Department of Homeland Security. They had people dressing as zombies for, test runs or whatever the heck they were doing a few years ago. So they're mocking all this zombie stuff, and it relates to the dead entity, of law that you're being controlled by. Which, this disinformation program called a straw man. And it's not a straw man because it's you under contract under this body politic. And it's, that's how it works.
Yeah. Is there anybody else anything else you want to say in closing, sir? And tell people where they can find you?
Roe v. Wade because of the new justice for the Supreme Court being positioned right now.
Mm-hmm.
This happened in, 72, I think. But here's the most interesting statement out of the case that I use. I don't listen to the courts because they're talking out both sides of their mouths usually.
73 for Roe v. Wade, not 72.
73, thank you. Yeah, it's in this country, the law in effect in all but a few states until the mid-19th century, which was 1950, was the pre-existing English common law. It was not until the war between the states that legislation began generally to replace the common law.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's your, what do you call, Fabian socialism, being slowly implemented.
Yes, I could see
and
that.
The 14th Amendment solidified it. It gave them the foundation to do what they're doing, but it slowly became into existence. And by the 1960, they had everything. All the planks are applied in the United States of the Communist Manifesto.
So one of the only things that we can really do for a solution is to try to work more with our communities the best that we could.
Yeah. There's three things that I came up with a few years ago is build local communities. That's the first out of 3 bullet points. Mm-hmm. 2 is correct people's nationalities that were ready to do it, so they had the standing to tell these guys go take a hike when, depending on the situation. Number 3 was watch what they're doing. Keep an eye on what they're doing. So, because it's to the point now where they're going to start enforcing or, doing things that we're not going to be happy about. We've wasted 20 years. People have wasted 20 years based on my work. It really is disappointing.
One last question, Mr. Bork, in the chat.
Yeah.
Oswald Spengler, and it's a good question. Even I didn't know this, Oswald. Did you know that George Orwell chose 1984 because it was 100 years after the founding of the Fabian Society? It was 100.
No,
1984 is the 100-year anniversary of the Fabian Society.
I didn't know that.
That's interesting, huh?
Yep. George Orwell was a socialist, so everything he said was not, intuitive or, to the point where he was warning people. He was telling people what their plan was with his stories.
Yes, and he was, both him and Aldous Huxley, they were both
insiders.
Yes.
Yeah.
Revelation of the method.
Right.
Out there in the public conscious.
They're bragging about it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Flaunting it, as they call it.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you, sir. Definitely thank you for joining me this evening.
Yeah. PAC Alliance is the main site right now. That's where you'll find a lot of information. That's PACALLIANCE.us. And then if you use Google, for some reason, DuckDuckGo and stuff doesn't work. But if you use Google, you can type in pacinlaw.us and all my papers will come up. And a lot of people like those because they are really detailed compared to the book. The book's a overview of everything. And some people like the papers because they're more targeted to a subject. But you'll find probably 50 or so that you can read. And they're anywhere from 1 page to 15 pages. And they're tutorial in nature. They're educational. And they're all footnoted, so you know the stuff's not horse hockey like a lot of these other people.
Proper researching.
Yeah, it's proper
and
researching.
sourced. And they can also find you on Revolution Radio, both the Ultimate Remedy and Dare to Think Out Loud, the Roundtable, which you might hear me
Right,
on.
which you're on with us.
And Dare to Think Out Loud is Friday afternoons at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the Ultimate Remedy is Tuesday evenings
Yes,
at 8 p.m.
to 8.
or
6 to 8.
6 p.m. Yeah, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 8 p.m. So yes, thank you for Mr. Bork for coming on, and everybody
Thanks
check
for
out
having
your
me.
work. Definitely have you on again, sir. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, everybody. That's it for this evening. Definitely want to thank Mr. Bork for coming on. Everybody, Mark from Housatonic Live right now is interviewing Deliana and her research about United States biodefense. I put a link to Mark's channel if you're not already subscribed in the chat. So please go watch this interview. It's going to be a scathing, a lot of information that Deliana has done on EcoHealth Alliance and Peter Daszak and the Scandemic. So definitely please go listen to Mark's channel. I will be going over there now myself to listen to wherever they are in the interview that Mark has done. Shout out to Mark. I cannot thank you enough, brother. You're a true friend and an excellent researcher. And I want to thank Mr. Bork for coming on too as well. He is also a dear friend and an excellent researcher. And please also pick up his book, The Red Amendment. Links are in the show notes. It's an excellent book. I've read it myself. And that's it, everybody. God bless you. And take care.